I know a channel worked with who was making $2 million a year off their YouTube channel with an audience size, a channel size of only 3,000 subscribers. Today, I want to talk with you about the top 3 models creators are using to make money online. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll know which one works best for you and why. And it'll be the start to understanding the system of how your creator business makes money. Welcome back to another Creator Business Lab podcast episode. My name is Tim Schmoyer, and I have been on this hamster wheel as a creator since 2006, going full-time in 2011, and then growing a business in the creator economy, selling that business. I have been through this cycle many, many times. And part of the challenge is the creator economy is always evolving, and there's always new things to keep up with in terms of what's working, what's not working, what an audience expects, what used to work and now they no longer want it. There's a lot going on here. But foundationally, there is a system, a model that most creators follow, 3 in particular, that they just kind of default into. And when I talk about what a business model is, I first of all want to make sure that we're on the same page, because I remember the first time I heard the word business model, and I was thinking like, okay, you need an MBA, like a master's in business in order to figure that out. I was thinking like really long documents, all in Times New Roman, 8-point font that are like really boring and lots of big jargon. It turns out, no. A business model is simply the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. I love that definition from Business Model Generation. That book just really helped me understand a lot of that. So I'm going to boil down, distill for you and someone who's as a creator. But it's the rationale, it's the plan, it's the strategy, it's the what are you going to intentionally do in order to create value, deliver value, and capture value. But unfortunately, most creators haven't even thought through their business in terms of writing down, here's how I create value, here's how I deliver value, and how I capture value, and what needs to happen at each of those stages in order to make it work and functional sustainably long term. They just kind of default to this cycle of like, all right, let me make another video and get AdSense revenue or something. So what I did for you is I went through a process that a lot of people have gone through. I didn't come up with myself, from Business Model Generation, walking you through a 1-page template, a 1-page sheet that will help you in a very visual way understand how your business works. This was so instrumental for me when I got started with my first creator economy business, Video Creators, back in 2013. I had done several businesses before that, all online, and they had moderate success, made a few $1,000s a month here, few $1,000s a month there, but it was very much like, I don't know how to like ramp this up. How do I get out of this feeling of feeling stuck? Like, how do I get from level 1 to level 2 and make more money so I'm not just spinning my wheels? How do I get to a point where I feel like I can take a vacation, take some time off, relax, and actually spend time with my family like I wanted to? How do you get that? Well, it starts with having a written down game plan for how you're going to grow your business and how your business even works in the first place. So I've created a walkthrough video for you that goes in depth into how to do this. You can go to timschmoyer.com/creatorbusinessplan. And there's a link to it in the show notes of this episode. I think it's like 40 minutes. Detailed explanation for how to take this worksheet, the business model canvas, and work through it in a very visual way that works for creators and understand all the moving parts of your business, including parts you probably haven't even thought of that need to go together in order to make this delivering, creating, and capturing value cycle work. So that worksheet and that video tutorial will teach you a very simple and visual process. It's going to help you spot the problem areas in your creator business. It's going to, allow you to quickly test different ideas for increasing revenue. And then it's also going to help reveal the areas that you can innovate in and should innovate in, and where the areas of improvement need to be in your business in order to better create, deliver, and capture value, and so much more. So you can download that worksheet and the video tutorial that goes along with it at timschmoyer.com/creatorbusinessplan. And I'm going to give you the 3 models here too that a lot of creators use, but that'll also get you on my email list. I'm just starting now. And every week we're going to be sending you out more information about how to grow your creator business and how to make more money and serve your audience even better with a really solid business, and serves your family better as well, as you better capture value. What I want to do here is talk about the revenue model. Now, revenue models are what most creators think of when they think of their business model. The business model canvas, that's a more complete, full picture. This is just going to be how the rationale of how you make money. And the first model that's very common on YouTube for creators especially is the AdSense model. Most creators are very familiar with. In fact, this is what most creators think of when they start thinking about how do I make money on YouTube. The model is pretty simply, it first starts with an advertiser who's got a budget to advertise. They come to Google and they say, hey, we want to promote this product or this service. We're going to make this ad. We want to put it on your platform. And Google's like, cool, yeah, pay us that money. And then they display that ad on channels, maybe like yours and others, who then Google then splits that revenue with, typically on a 45-55 split level. Google splits that money with the creator. The creator then gets that portion of the revenue, and then that revenue gets split between any copyright holders or anything else, and whatever is left at the end, then gets paid out to the creator. And by that time, what's happened is you've taken part of a advertising budget, is split hands with Google and potentially a few other hands before it gets into your pocket. It's great in one sense because you kind of get to passively just make money off of that. The more people watch it and the more people view it, especially for years down the road, you can just keep making that paycheck over and over again. And it's great. There's a few downsides to this, right? One of them being, most creators do this, they just create content that gets views from their existing audience and then just falls flat and dies. And no longer is getting views on an ongoing basis. And so it's a lot of work you're putting into making one piece of content that gets you X amount of dollars and maybe not much more. Another downside to this is that you don't control the revenue in any way at all, right? Google is the one who's developing the relationship with the advertiser. They're the ones who's, and on one hand, it's great. Like, they're negotiating everything. It's kind of hands off for you, but you don't control what the ad rates are going to be and how much money you're going to get, how many views you're going to get. You don't control the algorithms. You don't even control if that video stays monetized or not, or if your whole channel stays monetized. Like, there's lots of creators I know, good friends of mine, who have developed really good, solid businesses in the revenue sense on YouTube, on their channel, only to have the whole thing taken away, right? That is not a good place to be. I know that's a fear everyone, any creator who's had some success has that fear. And so it is the most passive way to make money. It's also the best way to make the least amount of money, depending on what niche you're in. If you're targeting kids, that might be a little different. And targeting kids is a whole different topic, by the way. But kids and YouTube Kids, made for kids content on YouTube is that's pretty much the only model that you get. So there is other ways then that creators have tried to mitigate some of these risks. And they're like, all right, well, let me develop some relationships directly with the brand and not just depend on Google to manage all this. And I want to have some of these relationships directly. And so they cut out Google directly and they go with a model that I would call the brand deal model. Now, instead of the advertiser coming to Google and then Google negotiating and splitting that revenue with you as a creator, you're like, forget Google. They're going to come directly to me and I'm going to negotiate this deal and I'm going to get 100% of the revenue instead of splitting it with someone else. And you can do that. And that's a very popular model that's very well established on YouTube. And so the advertiser works with the creator directly. You get 100% of the revenue. You can make much more money doing it because you're not splitting it, and it's a stronger brand integration instead of just a pre-roll to your content. So more value for the brand as well. And potentially more value for your audience because your audience now is engaged with that content and they're hearing what you have to say about it. And because you get to filter the ads, you don't get to do that in the AdSense model. You get to filter which brands would actually be valuable to your audience and which ones they want to hear more about. And you get paid more money directly than you would from AdSense from the advertiser. And now this model, as great as it is for making more money, it also has some downsides. Typically, a lot of creators are just going from deal to deal to deal. And then a few months go by, maybe they don't have a deal anymore. And now they're struggling and then they end up doing brand deals they don't really want to do, but they need to do in order to pay the bills. And so that can become a less than ideal situation for both the creator and the brand and the audience. Now, the most challenging part, in my opinion, is that part of what a business plan is the rationale for how you create, deliver, and capture value. In both of the models we've talked about so far, in the AdSense revenue model as well as in the brand deal revenue model, who's the product here? Like, you're making money, so you have a product, right? Who or what is the product? I think I kind of gave it away. In the advertising model, your audience is the product. You make money off of your audience, right? So the more eyeballs you have that you can sell to, the more money that you can potentially charge. And obviously that, if on a sponsorship model, that's also based on things like how authoritative you are in your space, how many other channels could an advertiser go to in order to reach your audience, how much authority and credibility do you have, how close is your relationship with your audience, how long you've been doing this, what other type of opportunities do you have to make money. There's a lot of other things that go into that price of how much you charge, which may be another topic for another time. But for right now, it is your audience, though that's your product, selling eyeballs. And at the end of the day, you have to get more eyeballs in order to grow your business, in order to make more money. I have a model that I actually prefer, the third one. And there are a lot of creators doing this very successfully, and it's the one that I think makes sense for most education channels. An educational channel being one that is primarily teaching something. It's educational some way in the fact that someone's learning something, and the main value proposition revolves around teaching, learning, educating an audience in some way. There's a other category of channels called entertainment channels, which are ones where the value prop primarily revolves around how do we just give someone a good time, entertain them, make them feel like, oh, that's interesting or curious or something like that. So we're going to talk about this new model, both for the educational channels as well as the entertainment channels. And that is something, I call it the new model. It's not really new. I only call it new because it tends to be new to most creators who start on YouTube thinking primarily in terms of advertising revenue. In the new model, you are going to put that marketing tie, that brand deal tie on yourself. And you are now going to be the brand. And instead of trying to negotiate deals with brands and advertisers, what you're going to do is you're going to make amazing content on YouTube that audience finds really valuable. And they're going to consume that content for free, and you're still going to get the ad revenue thing, which is great, but that's going to be like the cherry on top. Then what you're going to do is you end up creating a product that continues to deliver the value proposition to your audience that they're getting for free from your channel, but at like 10x that value that they're getting. So if they're getting it at 1x the value for free on your channel, what does 10x that value look like? And how do you put it into a format that someone is willing to pay for? And then you're going to sell that directly to your audience. Now your audience becomes your customers instead of your product. You have a product you're selling to them. And what I love about this model is that it's a great way to deliver more value to your audience in a format they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And it's a great way to build a deeper relationship with them. Now you control a little bit more your revenue because you're not just depending on YouTube to make sure that the advertising shows up. You're not just going from deal to deal, hoping that brands come. You're like, I can just build a good audience and I can serve them really well through a product I sell directly to them. And I like this because this, in my experience, is the best model for making the most money with the smallest audience possible. Okay. I know this, I'm not exaggerating. I know a channel worked with who was making $2 million a year off their YouTube channel with an audience size, a channel size of only 3,000 subscribers. Now, that sounds crazy. And that one, I admit, is the biggest one that I've seen or heard of that's making that much money with that size audience. But this new model is exactly what this guy was doing. Is he had a very specific, very niche audience. It wasn't like this broad appeal type of channel, very narrow appeal to a very specific target audience. And there's not even that many of them in the world. He was going right after that person. And he had the exact product for them that they needed in order to move ahead. But this is the model that he followed. And many others, like I know other channels who have 100,000 subscribers, making $500,000 a year, $1 million a year with this model. It's rare that I find a channel that size making that type of money with just sponsorships or just AdSense especially. So this model is a much better one in terms of How do you make more money with the audience that you have? So for an educational type channel, this model often looks like, it gets down to information products like online courses and cohorts and consultations and trainings and things like that. In the entertainment category, though, what this often looks like is selling community, is selling memberships to at typically a pretty low fee, but just doing a lot of them. $5 a month, $29 a month, $47 a month, something like that, where people want to become a part of something. So in an educational channel, the main value prop is around learning something, developing a skill, and you can help people develop skills with more education online. But in an entertainment channel where they're not learning a skill, we just want to be entertained, primarily the main value revolves around a relational one. And so what people will do is pay more for an online membership in order to have higher levels of access or behind the scenes or a deeper level of feeling like I'm a part of this community, and I'm building a relationship, not just with the creator, but with the people here who also love this thing or about this thing. And so either model works. In fact, I know a channel doing very well, more in the entertainment space. They don't have particularly large channels. In fact, their channel isn't even up to 200,000 subscribers yet. And they have thousands, like 5,000 people paying them like $5-6 a month. And so that adds up, way much more than they're going to do from AdSense. And so here, the quality of the relationship you have with your audience really ends up mattering in that type of entertainment category. So either category, this new quote unquote new model, I know for some of you've been thinking like a businessman from the very beginning, and maybe you're growing your channel more as the marketing arm for your business that you already have. And that's great. That's how I'm going to encourage most creators to think about their creator business is, sure, get a good channel going. And then you're in a great spot. If you don't already have product, you already don't have a revenue model in place besides brand deals and AdSense, you're in a great spot because you have the most challenging part of all this, which is how do I get customers? A lot of businesses, they start with making the product and then they struggle to sell it. And then they're trying how do we get someone to buy this? But you, if you already have a channel, you're in the opposite position, which is great. And so I would encourage you guys to think very carefully and intentionally about the rationale for how you create, deliver, and capture value. And we talked about this a little bit on a revenue perspective, but the revenue is actually just a very small part of what makes your whole business work. It's a very important part, right? It's like the fuel that keeps the business going, but you also have to consider your costs, and you have to consider your key relationships and partnerships and your cost structure and your key activities that you have to do. And you have to consider the value proposition, the target audience, and all these things work together to create a more holistic view of your business and how it works. And again, you can go to timschmoyer.com/creator business plan, link in the show notes to download that worksheet, that one-page worksheet, and then follow the tutorial video there that I'm giving you as well. With that sheet, print it out. I'll actually show you as a part of that tutorial what my very first canvas looked like, business model canvas for video creators back in 2013 when I started it. And so print that canvas out, watch the tutorial, and I want you to fill it out for your business while you're watching it. And then at the end of that video, you should have a pretty complete look of oh, okay, here's how this part of the business impacts that part of the business and how that part impacts this part. And okay, so I thought the problem is I really just needed to charge more for my product. But it turns out the problem is actually I need to get more people in the funnel or something, right? I don't know if the issue will be for you, obviously, but it really helps fill in all the gaps and helps you think about your business from a much bigger perspective. So I highly recommend it. In fact, when I do coaching with a lot of creators on their businesses, we often start with something like this. Now, first of all, we put out whatever fires that we're really bringing them to business coaching for their channel. But after we put out some of those fires, it's very common that we dive into the business model canvas and really understand at a higher level how their business is actually working. And so you can do that even without me. Go to timschmoyer.com/creator business plan, link in the show notes to get that. In our next episode, what I want to do is talk with you about how do you test your ideas in your business to know, especially product ideas, how do you test them to know if they're actually going to work? If you're going to go for this, what I call quote unquote new model and go more into the product side of things with your audience, I've done it. Many creators have done it, where you create the product, you launch it to crickets. And I do not want that to be the case for you. I've felt that pain myself, unfortunately, and we're going to help you avoid it in the next episode. So subscribe here to our podcast if you haven't already, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to them. And I will see you guys again next time for that next episode. See you guys then.